precise and word perfect replication of what you normally do on the ground into the online environment isn't always desirable or even feasible. Like the art of translation, course conversion should not merely strive for a word for word equivalency, but should allow the new mode of communication to be fully utilized. Just as there are some manifestations that can be accurately articulated only in Japanese or Spanish or any particular language, there are expressions that are unique to the online medium. The transition to an online format offers the opportunities to explore new learning techniques. Preserving the quality of your classroom environment course need not necessarily imply preserving with an extension of the same in a completely different online medium. In conversation with Better Me Academy today, we have Kshitij Jain, who is currently heading the content team at Upgrad, an online education startup to upskill working professionals and help them grow in their careers. Kshitij, a BTech from IIT Bombay, enjoys building and managing teams, creating online courses, and working on technology projects. We will have this conversation with Kshitij in two parts: content delivery and content creation. In content delivery, we'll understand the most effective ways of teaching online. The key points discussed under content delivery are the characteristics of online teaching and what defines a successful teacher, how to make online classes engaging for students, and various useful tools and technology for online teaching. So let's begin with our first question. So Kshitij, the first question to you is, what are the key characteristics of online pedagogy, and what, according to you, is a successful online teacher?
Sure. The first thing is that a lot of the teachers, right, seem to think that online teaching is, in a way, a compromise, right, in some way to offline teaching. That you cannot do as much in an online classroom that you can do offline, right? I personally would want to challenge that assumption, right? And I have good reasons to say that, which we are going to talk about in the next few minutes, right? But yeah, it is fundamentally different. Of course, there are some disadvantages, right, or some constraints that you have to work around. So just to enlist some, just being in front of the screen for a student for a long period of time itself is very taxing to the mind, right? So you really have to make conscious effort into designing content and your delivery such that it is engaging, right? What you could teach in an offline classroom really seamlessly, right? You'll find that sometimes online sort of classes look too long. People are could get a little tired, right? But there are certain things that if you do right on the positive side, right, that you can ask lots of questions. You can even design group activities online, and we are going to talk about how to do that, right? In fact, you can do that on Zoom, the platform that we are using right now, right? So a lot of those things are, if you leverage those things, it can make online classes really really powerful. Online versus offline teaching, right? So this is a typical online classroom, offline classroom. Everyone can see everyone. Instructor can sense the engagement levels intuitively because you can look at the body language. And just looking at the body language provides a lot of feedback, right? We don't realize this because this is very day to day and very very common. But the moment you start teaching online, you realize that, oh God, I can't really see anyone. I can't really get a sense of whether they are really enjoying it, whether they are getting bored or things like that, right? And of course, you can ask questions and you can check progress, right? So you ask a question. If more people raise their hands, you get a sense, okay, that they're engaged and they are also learning, right? That okay, they're answering questions correctly, right? Yes. This is what a typical, on the other hand, sort of an online classroom looks like. So one constraint is that you can only see a limited number of students, right? So, for example, if you have a classroom of, let's say, 50 odd students or more than that, in offline you can see everyone, but in online, I mean, on the screen there's only a limited amount of real estate available. So you can probably see, I don't know, maybe max 8 or 10, right? That kind of a number.
And upon how big the screen sizes of your device.
It actually depends on the screen size as well, yeah, and the platform that you're using, right?
That's right.
right? But then there are advantages, and I'll sort of elaborate the advantages as well, right? So I personally think that students have access to the internet, so do you, right? And hence there's a lot of great content out there that you can really leverage, right? And then there are some open questions which we'll discuss. So can you ask questions? Can you check progress, right? And in the next few minutes we'll talk about that.
Yes.
So on successful teachers, what would I personally think? So I don't think there's any fundamental difference between a teacher who's successful offline versus online, right? Uh, the fundamentals are the same. That first of all, you need to engage students, and most importantly, I personally think that a successful teacher, one of the most important traits is the ability to excite people about the subject matter, whatever you're teaching. If you're teaching a language, you're teaching math, you're teaching English, right? And it's a very simple question, right? If I ask you, Praniti, right, who has been your most favorite teachers so far in school and college, right? Chances are that the person you would recall as your teacher, as a favorite teacher, you would also love that subject. You would also like that subject. It's very rare that you say that I like that teacher, but I didn't really like social science, right? It's very rare, right? Because the person fundamentally taught it so well, right?
Exactly.
So they have good command over the subject, right? And they have the ability to inspire you and to excite you uh, to really you really want to learn the subject. You really want to master the subject, right? You see the beauty in it, right? Rather than just putting things up, a list of things that, okay, this is what you have to learn and this is what will come in exams, of course, right? You really want to learn the subject, right? So yeah, successful teacher, excites people and makes them engage and makes them learn a lot. So I work at a company called Upgrad. I sort of lead the content team there, right? And we recently launched our a platform similar to Zoom, but specifically for online teaching, right? So when we launched that platform, it is for teachers, and I'm going to talk about that in one of the slides. The first thing we noticed was that teachers were scared, right, to go online. They had all sorts of questions like, which tools, which technologies, can I really do it? Do I have to buy anything? What if my internet connection is slow, right? So
Right.
irrespective of the questions, the sentiment was that they were a little overwhelmed, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I want to start with that, the fact that please understand that this is new for everyone. So if you're a teacher, you're looking to start teaching online, or if you have already started, just new to it. It's new for everyone, including the students. So just it will take some time to get used to it. So don't take too much stress. Just start off, right? Second is focus on the content and the pedagogy, not on the platform, right? So there's a lot of and this is understandable, right? Because if you're scared, the first thing you want to talk about is the technologies, the tools, because that is the new part, right? You know how to teach, you know what to teach, right? But you don't know where to teach it, which online platform and things like that, right? But don't make it and that's fair, that's understandable, but still just keep your focus on the content and pedagogy. The platform is something this session will help you navigate through, identify the right platform and things like that. But yeah, uh, that's the secondary thing still in online teaching, right? A third is just make it interactive, right? This is one of the, and we'll talk about that in detail. So use features such as poll questions, multiple choice questions. You can also divide the class into smaller groups and make them do activities and discussions and things like that, right? Yeah. Some other sort of general best practices, right? Please set clear expectations and some classroom rules. Rules are important, not a lot, but just two that I have in mind that we have seen that are very important. We do a lot of live online classes, in our company. So one is it's very important to keep videos on, right? So please make it a policy or a rule. Just exercise your authority here as a teacher that, okay, it's compulsory to keep videos on. And just make them feel comfortable that it's fine if people are moving around in the background and things like that. Just set that expectation, right? But otherwise, because if you're teaching for a few weeks or even a few months, some teachers will actually have to teach for a few weeks at least, right? It will become very sort of boring just to keep looking at a blank screen, right? So that's it. And some, you ask people to mute their mics when they're not speaking, right? So that's one slightly larger and very important point, right, in online teaching, right? So one thing that will lack, that will, that is likely to to emerge, right, in online learning is the lack of a sense of community, right? Because students are just sitting alone at their houses and they're just learning, right? So just there are ways to encourage a sense of community, right? Very simple things like asking students to answer each other's questions. Yeah. So just just make them, just rather than going into a monologue. And I just realized I've been on a monologue for the past few minutes. So this is this is something you should not do. Let's say Praniti, you are a student. If you ask me a question and I'm the teacher, rather than asking the answering the question myself, I can just pick up another student, right, and ask them to answer the question, right? So they get involved in a dialogue, right?
Yes.
So that is what will make them feel like we are still a community. It's not like one person is yelling at sort of 100 people. Right, so that's one. One very sort of a practical tip: always record your online lectures, right? And don't forget to do that, because those who have missed the class can watch it again, right? Watch it, and if some students want to watch it again, they can do that, right? So that's that. Yeah, so this is a sort of a good detailed guide by Harvard University on a guide on online teaching, right? Highly recommend going through that, and it will resolve most of your questions.
So, Shitendra, you just said that yes, engaging and creating an interest in students is one of the very important thing that a teacher should do, no matter what the medium. But in online, how do we do that? In offline, yes, we can make them sit in a group, or there are a lot of activities that we normally do in a classroom, group activities, or they collaborate and do things. How do we do it in an online medium?
Got it. If you, I'm not sure if how many people watching this would be aware of this, but you would have heard of Khan Academy, right?
Yes.
Right. So Sahil Khan was the founder of is the founder of Khan Academy. He started Khan Academy back in I think more than 10 years ago, right, when online teaching was not heard of, right? And he was probably the first person to sort of make online learning really mainstream, right? And even I used to be sort of in college back then, and I used to learn a lot of topics which were not a part of my syllabus, right? So I used to learn biology, I used to learn astronomy from him, right? The point I'm trying to drive is that doesn't matter online or offline, content is king, right? What you teach and how you teach is the most important thing, right? So and we can, of course, interactivity and all these things are important, right? But just simply, I personally think that if you prepare the right content, right? If the content itself is exciting, right? Then you really like to, then it engages people. There's no way around it, right? So, and a good analogy is that, so there's the core content, and there are things that you do to make content engaging, and design activities and all. A good analogy is that, so Praniti, do you like old movies, old Bollywood or Hollywood movies?
Yeah.
So like you still watch movies back from 1950s, 1960s, right? I still love I don't know, maybe Indiana Jones and stuff like that. I still and if you compare that to any modern movie, right? I mean, the graphics are much inferior, everything. Those days, they didn't have a lot of VFX or graphics and all that, right? But a lot of those movies you still are evergreen because the content is so good, right? It's just that, right? So I think the focus in online teaching should be still on fundamentals, right? Design the right content, ask right questions, ask intriguing questions about the topic, right? That's the primary thing. And then the secondary thing is, during the classroom, while you're teaching in the classroom, how do you want to make it engaging, and what kind of interactivity, what kind of features you can use on platforms like Zoom, right, to make it. So this is just a bucket list of very commonly used features to put interactivity in your online classes, right? So one is you can launch poll questions which are available on Zoom, and you can use these to really just check the temperature of the class, in the sense that you shoot a question, 3 options, 4 options. You can ask your students, okay, just take a guess, right? And you can in real time, it also actually shows you what people have answered, and people can also see that, right? So yeah, I'm not sure. So Praniti, I'm not sure, did you get a chance to
Yes, I did. You want me to do that?
Yeah, it will be great if you can just
Launch
launch
the
the
poll
poll.
question. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
am a Spanish teacher. So I have put very basic questions for Spanish.
Okay.
Uh,
Oh, okay. So let me just take a picture of it and I'll just put it right. Um, hmm. Okay. So yeah. Okay. So I've just pasted this poll question on the slide so
okay.
that you can see, right? So yeah, this is a poll question, right? So it says, uh, uh, how
I,
do you ask someone's name in Spanish? And yeah, the students can choose. There are actually two questions, how to say number 12 in Spanish, right? So this
yeah,
is
there
a
are three. I
wonderful.
mean, if I scroll down, if you scroll, because you've taken a snapshot, you cannot. Yeah, but there can be multiple questions in a poll.
Oh yeah, there can be multiple questions. Yeah, so you can use poll questions right in the online class. That's a wonderful way to. And I think Praniti, if I choose as a student, if I choose one of the options, you will also in real time get to see the
So,
responses. You know.
say for example, you're choosing an option. I don't know if Zoom can record this, but maybe
Hmm.
it can show how it is showing the responses as well. So
Yeah,
you
I've chosen three options randomly.
there the result and there. Okay.
Let me just take a screenshot and can just record this. Right. So okay. So yeah. So yeah, I've taken a screenshot of the results of the poll question, right? So how do you ask someone's name in Spanish? And because the only student in Praniti's class right now, 100% of the responses are option B, option C, and option A, right? So, but if there are 50, 100 odd students, you'll see a distribution, right? How many people answered, chose which option. So
So
this is
you
a
can
very
sense like on while you're teaching how much they've understood or something like that.
exactly, yeah, yeah. That's a really good sort of a pulse check tool for you, right? That because if most of the people are answering questions incorrectly, right,
Yeah.
then you get immediate feedback, and you can probably slow down your pace, go back a few minutes, and talk about the same, explain the same concept again, right? So let's move to the next one, right? So the second one is using the chat feature extensively, right? So Zoom comes with a chat feature, and when I used to sort of teach, right, and I used to teach, computer programming. People used to ask a lot of questions on chat, right? So use the chat feature extensively. Ask them to put questions, right? The most common use of the chat feature is students put up questions, right? And then you can either take those questions on the go, or you could take them towards the end of the class. I personally prefer to take them on the go, because if somebody has a question and he or she is stuck there, then you don't want to rush ahead, uh, yeah, without answering that. So
Right.
the chat feature is important. The third thing, this is a very 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 useful feature, very interesting one, is use which is called breakout rooms, right? So this is available on Zoom, and
Mm.
basically what you can do is that you can divide the classroom into smaller groups of students. So for example, if you have 30 students, you can divide them into 10 groups of 3 students each, right?
Yes.
And some things that you can make them do are, you can make them solve problems collaboratively, you can make them discuss ideas, you can even design competitions, right? So for example, uh, what you could do is that you have 10 teams of 3 people each, right? You can have them work on a case study, or a couple of questions, right?
Mhm.
uh, or something like that, and then they have to probably, you can give them 10 minutes, you go to your own groups,
Yes.
discuss that, and then come and present your idea. So every group has to have a leader, they have to identify a leader who will then present uh, what they have discussed, or some of the ideas, right?
Right.
So this is a wonderful tool that we've used across, and it works even with adults, right?
Mm.
Particularly with adults. So we, at Upgrad, we do online MBAs, right? So it's a full-fledged, 15 months long online MBA program. That's massive, right? um, and in MBA, these kind of things are very common, right? Negotiation skills, persuasion skills, right? So an MBA graduate needs to have all those skills. So we use breakout rooms for all of these things, right?
Mm.
uh, right, so you divide them into groups and ask them to, just discuss case studies, negotiate with each other. On how to make classes engaging, right? So some of the things that we've discussed are just to make them interactive and engaging. You launch poll questions, use chat, use breakout rooms, so that rather than it getting monotonous, uh,
Right.
there's a lot of interactivity. Some other things that you can do just in the content, right? From the content point of view, is one is that uh, use lots of videos and images. And if you see, I've also tried to use images, at least one image in every slide, right? Because studies and research has shown that people retain far more when the input is visual rather than when it is audio or even text, right? By visual we mean when you watch videos or when you watch images or figures or flow charts, you retain it for much far longer than for audio text. And this is a general research done on memory, essentially, right? So you should use a lot of figures, videos, right? And as I mentioned earlier, one of the biggest advantages in online teaching is that you have an ocean of content available, free content available on YouTube in the form of videos, blogs, right? That you can point them to. Just one caveat, and this is very important, guys. There are sort of legal implications if you use content from on the internet for paid courses, right? So if you what you're doing is if you're recording your videos and putting it up on YouTube, right? Then you cannot use some content out there, especially if your online sort of programs are paid, right? So you cannot essentially make money using other content, out of content that other people have created. There are some sort of clauses out there. There are different types of licenses, right? But by and large, if you're just doing sort of live online classes, not recording them and putting them up on YouTube, then you can. And also one more caveat in online sort of teaching is that rather than embedding the videos on, if you're using a platform or on your deck, just ask them to just provide the link to them. So that way what you're doing is that you're asking people to go to the platform where it is supposed to be watched rather than putting it up on your own platform. So just avoid the risk of essentially you don't want to record anything that other people have created. That's the thumb rule, right? Then there is a you can use humor and you can crack jokes, right? And what I mentioned earlier, right, that online classes tend to get people tend to get tired and bored much easily in online classes than offline, right? So this is something that you want to do more. If you don't do that, start doing it. Strongly recommend it. If you already do that a little more. There's no fun is more the merrier, right? So so just use and I personally like using, if you're using PPTs or things like that, so I personally like using memes, and just take short breaks every 20-25 minutes or so, because just a 5-minute break, it could be very short break, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, because you don't want to go on a monologue.
Please tell me about what kind of tools and technology one can use to make it engaging for students in online.
Sure, great. Some popular platforms among many, right? There are more than 15, 20 odd platforms that I am aware of, right? I've heard of in the sense, but the most common ones are Zoom. I've underlined that to sort of highlight the fact that we will be focusing mostly on Zoom, right? Yes. Right now. Then Google Hangouts, then there is WebEx. Upgrad is, as I mentioned, the organization where I work. Right. So we've also launched our own live online teaching platform. And we'll share this deck. So here is a link to a video tutorial just guiding you how to sign up for that. It's a free platform for instructors to use, right? So if you're interested in using this, you can sign up here. This is a URL. So at this point, I think we've launched this platform a few months ago. We've sort of seen a lot of teachers signing up, and so far we've seen more than 50,000 odd students and teachers combined using this platform, right? Google Hangouts does not provide as many features as Zoom, and you also Zoom. One advantage of Zoom is that it utilizes lesser internet bandwidth, right? Right. So now let's quickly talk about how to deliver online classes, right? So first is what are the suitable instruction modes, right? What types of modes you can really use, right? So one is the most vanilla form, right? Is a PPT or a PowerPoint presentation. This presentation that you can see on the screen is I've created it using PowerPoint. So you can just create a deck just like this one.
Yes.
That's option one, right? The second, there are other options, and just replicating a Blackboard or a whiteboard like environment where you can write using freehand, right? Gives you the most amount of flexibility, right? So how do you really do that, right? So one is, Pranitya, like you mentioned, you can just mount a camera on a tripod or things like that. You can just buy a simple whiteboard and just keep writing on it. That's a wonderful option, right? But then there are other options, right, that are slightly more sort of specifically designed for online teaching, right? So one is the first one is a Wacom tablet. So Wacom is actually the name of a company. There are two types of Wacom tablets, and the prices are different. First is without screen, right? So this is something here you can see in the image, right, that this the lady in the screen is sort of teaching. It looks like math, right? So
yes,
writing a plus b square, something like that. She's actually writing all of those equations on the black Wacom tablet here, right? But the thing is that in this one, you have to look at her eyes are on the screen, but she's writing on the black pad, right? Which takes some time to kind of get used to, because I've used this Wacom tablet, this particular type, right? It's not the first time you'll use it, you feel like you'll never be able to write on it, but you practice on it for one or couple of days, you will be able to write really good, with good handwriting. Then the second type is Wacom tablet type 2, which is actually with a screen, right? So this is really wonderful, very easy to use, very user friendly, because in this case, if you notice, the person is actually looking at the Wacom tablet itself rather than the laptop screen, right? And the Wacom is connected to the laptop using a USB or something like that. So you can just this is much easier to write on. So this is the second option. The other option, if you already own an iPad, right, is then the option is iPad. So iPad with an Apple Pencil. You need a pencil to write on the iPad, right? But it's really wonderful, very very user friendly, right? And in fact, I can just quickly share my screen, and these are some of the notes that I've been taking. Right? So this is an iPad with an Apple Pencil that I can use. Right? So I can just, if you want to teach anything, right? It could be math, it could be anything. You can draw stuff, right? So you can write, so this is writing. You can see my writing is very bad. So this is actually how I would write on a blackboard or a notebook. So these kind of things you can write. The other, I personally love one thing about iPad is that you can actually use documents and sort of annotate on that, right? So this is just some random report that is on my iPad. So if you have some content that you want to use, you can just take this, you can highlight things, right? And you can then say, okay, you can use different colors, right? So you could things like that. So you can highlight things, and then you can put annotations on top of it, right? That one X, Y, Z, something, something, and 2, A, B, C, something, something, right? So this is really a very powerful tool if you want to teach, right? Because that way you can use existing content, you can annotate on top of it, or you can just use a blank slide, just like we were using here, right? And just treat it like a normal whiteboard, right? So iPad is a really wonderful option. Finally, one option is another option is you can record your notebook if you prefer a pencil and a pen, or a pen and a paper. And if you for some reason don't might not have access to a whiteboard or any of the tablets or Wacom or iPad, right? You can record your notebook using a second camera, right? So I'll just show you an example. So this gentleman here is Grant Sanderson. He's one of my favorite sort of teachers. He teaches online primarily. He's a YouTube channel called 3 Blue 1 Brown. So let me just play this video.
Plus and minus, that's standard deviation, which in this case looks like, maybe I'll write it out in 2 lines because this will be a lot. Negative D.
Right. So you can see that his face is visible, right? So you never lose that connect with the teacher, right? And it's a very simple setup, right? He has a normal notebook, a normal pen, and he has figured out a way to mount a camera on top of the notebook, and he's just writing on it. So it's a very simple way. I've put a link here, right? Says how to shoot your notebook, right? This is a YouTube video. So how do you set up your camera and your notebook so that you can record these kind of videos.
That concludes our conversation with Kshitij on how to effectively teach online. So the most important element to be a successful teacher in online medium is something that one already had while teaching offline, and that is your passion and love for teaching. To highlight this, Kshitij gave us an example of how we still enjoy old movies, mainly because of its content or the inline story, even though Their visual effects cannot be compared with today's advanced technology. Kshitij demonstrated chat features, breakout rooms, poll questions, etc., that are useful to make class interactive and get students engaged in it. We also learned some useful tools to impart teaching through presentations, Wacom tablets, iPad, or by simply mounting one's camera on top of the notebook to explain concepts better to students. I have included the links to all the attributes explained in this video in the description box below. Please do have a look. As teachers, you already know what to teach, and that's your content. Hope this conversation has helped you understand the nuances of how to teach online. Thank you very much.